Hi there, good afternoon. Welcome to the Athletics World Cup Radar. I'm Adam Leventhal, and that is Stadium 974, the site of Argentina's victory over Poland last night. Argentina through, Lionel Messi through, Poland going through with them. Only just though. It was very, very tense. We'll discuss that on today's show. We'll focus on Argentina and Messi with James Horncastle and Adam Crafton, who I joined a little bit earlier on poolside. We'll also discuss the two teams that they will meet in the knockout round. France will be taking on Australia, the surprise package to come out of Group D. France, we knew were going through the holders, but they had that surprise defeat amid controversial circumstances against Tunisia, who were bitterly disappointed not to go through. We'll look ahead to today's action. Rafa Honigstein, our German football writer, will be discussing the Germans' nervy night tonight, which is upcoming against Costa Rica. It's so tight in that group, with Spain top, Japan second, Costa Rica third, and Germany still bottom. We'll see if we can pick apart who is going to go through from that. It's tense too in Belgium's group. They take on the leaders Croatia, but they have not been performing well, and it appears as if it's been an unhappy camp as well. Oliver Kay will be joining us to discuss that too live. We'll also have the latest from the England camp. Yesterday, this was them by the pool, taking it easy after that victory which secured their place in the knockout round against Wales. They were doing their stretches, doing a bit of Pilates, just taking it easy in a recovery session. However, today it starts to ramp up a little bit ahead of their game on Sunday against Senegal, and we will be speaking live at the England camp to Jack Pitt-Brooke, our England football writer, and we'll just be seeing how everyone's bearing up now that the intensity has just gone up a little bit from that beautiful looking poolside session. Speaking of the poolside, let's just give you a little taste of the conversation that I had earlier on with James Horncastle and Adam Crafton, which we recorded by James Horncastle's pool at his villa, reflecting on Argentina's victory over Poland yesterday and the team and Lionel Messi heading through. How important is that for the tournament? So the sound of running water means that we are back at James Horncastle's villa by the pool. He insists upon it. Adam Crafton is here with us as well. James, we were both there at the 974 stadium to see Argentina's excitable victory over Poland. What was your take on it? The experience, the jeopardy, I suppose, as well, which was key to start off with.
Well, after the Mexico game, Argentina's coach Lionel Scaloni said, we've got to get a grip on this because our tournament so far has been just too emotional. After the shock of the opening game against Saudi Arabia and everyone kind of throwing what the team had achieved into doubt, 36 games undefeated, champions of South America, then the relief of beating Mexico and staying in the competition. Last night at the 974, it was the best performance by Argentina we've seen. It felt like everything they'd said after the Mexico game, that they were liberated, that they were relieved, that they could now start to express themselves, was true. And also, I think Scaloni has tweaked this team one game after another in order to find the right balance. And it felt like he found it last night with the injection of some young, energetic players from the start. We've seen Enzo Fernandez and Julian Alvarez come on for Argentina and make impacts. They started this game, and Michael Cox was sat next to me, and Cox was blown away by their counter-pressing. Yeah. You know, how quickly, if they lost the ball, they won it back again really quickly. And I think that meant that Messi was more engaged in the game more because the team had more of the ball. They were able to get it to him. And so we saw that Messi, the playmaker last night, where, okay, he had a penalty saved, but he created a few really good chances with incisive passing. And
That's
now
what stood out, wasn't it, with Messi? Yes, you mentioned the penalty it's the way he passes, the almost like the also the swaz that he puts on it all the time. They're always sort of high caliber passes into the right spot all the time.
Yeah. I mean, they hadn't really been able to get in behind their opponents up until now in this tournament. We saw Mexico set up very negatively against them. You know, they didn't play with a striker. They played with two wingers up front. They played with kind of five across midfield. And Argentina could never get their game to speed up. And they did regularly last night. And there was a lot of excitement, not only among the team, but you could see among the Argentine press corps, because the results earlier in the day, which meant that Australia qualified and the group winner from Argentina's group would play Australia, that I think the players would have been aware of that, the journalists were aware of it, and they all of a sudden thought, hang on a minute, this tournament is now really opening up for us, because on the eve of the tournament, they thought, we'll probably win our group and play Denmark, which will be a tricky game, considering what Denmark had done at the European Championships last year. And then when they lost to Saudi Arabia, they thought, okay, we'll probably play France. And now, in the space of a week, they've got themselves into a position where they're going to play Australia in the round of 16. And, I mean, you mentioned they're excitable fans. Last night, I mean, 45 minutes after the full time, the fans were still in the stadium, bouncing up and down, singing about winning a third World Cup. And it didn't feel hopeful. It felt, like they now believe it. And so, the change of mood over the course of the week with this Argentina team has been pretty astonishing to witness.
We'll come on to the Polish side of things in a moment's time, because I think it's worth referencing that. But Adam, obviously everyone wants to see Messi. You saw it last night with the Argentine press pack. They're just purring every time he gets the ball. The fans up another level. The tournament needs Messi to be successful as well, and I would have thought the Qataris who are running it, FIFA who are running it as well, they feel that too, that there's just an extra element whenever he's anywhere near anything.
I think generally Messi he's got better as this tournament's gone on. And it was interesting, I know it's kind of the thing everyone does to compare him to Cristiano Ronaldo, but just his involvement in this World Cup, in the actual games, in terms of the way that his team plays, his part, his combinations, it all seems to fit a little bit better than it does with Ronaldo and Portugal. And that's kind of just the way that their games have evolved. Ronaldo's the finisher, Messi's always been more of a playmaker. But I think as they both get older, Messi has been able to endure that little bit more and still be, no one's watching Argentina and thinking, should Messi still be playing? Whereas I think when you watch Portugal, you do think, should Ronaldo be an automatic selection? So I mean, definitely for the tournament, even as journalists here, right? Like, I was thinking yesterday, do I try and get a ticket for this game, because it could be the last ever time we see Messi at a World Cup?
Yes, and his story does go on. So it'll be interesting to see how Argentina get on in the round of 16. Just a couple of bits of headlines that are currently breaking at the moment here in Doha. You can still see the stadium over my left shoulder. And I'll never get it right. Stadium 974, where the game took place yesterday. Uruguay, a big focus on them against Ghana. Luis Suarez has been speaking in the last few moments at the media center, which isn't that far away from where I'm situated at the moment. And a couple of interesting quotes. He's basically been talking about being the devil heading into the game against Ghana. You remember that great rivalry which stems from 2010, his handball, and you'll read a lot more about it on The Athletic via Ollie Kay's piece. We'll be speaking to him a little bit later on about Belgium. Obviously, being the devil associated with that game, biting Chiellini as well, and he fears being a marked man on Friday. Just following up from the Argentina story, obviously from that group, Mexico didn't make it through. Tata Martino, the coach, had the end of his contract looming, but he pretty much announced that was that at the end of the game. Very disappointing for Mexico. Felipe Cardenas, who covers all of the South American teams, Mexico too, has been writing in depth on that. You'll be able to read about that on The Athletic as well. And just to point you in the direction of that interview with Adam Crafton and James Horncastle, you can hear it in full on the Athletic Football Podcast, which is available to you in all your regular podcast places. So thanks very much for listening to that throughout the tournament. It's on every morning. You can download it. Right, let's concentrate for a moment on England if we can, because you saw them earlier on just having quite a relaxed recovery session yesterday. It has ramped up slightly today because they have been training at their training camp, and I think they're training right now. Is that right? Jack Pitbrook is there for us. The open training is ongoing, is it?
Hi, Adam. Yeah, we're about 10 minutes into open training here. All of the England players, apart from Ben White, of course, are out behind me, just starting their training sessions. So if you look over my right shoulder, I think it is, you can see England's 22 outfield players. They were passing the ball around a minute ago in 11 pairs of two. They've now broken into, I think some of them have got 10 or so of them have got bibs on. The rest haven't got bibs on. I'm sure there's about to be some sort of small-sided game as they ramp up their preparations for Senegal on Sunday.
Yeah, obviously that one departure being Ben White, who has left for personal reasons. In terms of the selection issues for Gareth Southgate, we spoke on the Athletic Football Podcast about that big decision to make about, Sterling, Saka, Foden, Rashford. Are we getting any sort of clues yet or not? Is it just going to be one that is saved until the last minute to try and keep Senegal on their toes?
Well, Declan Rice was asked about it in the press conference earlier, and he just said it was a good headache for Gareth Southgate to have. I'm sure Southgate will want to keep his cards as close to his chest as possible between now and Sunday evening. I must admit, personally, in the aftermath of the game, I did think that it'd be Rashford and Foden, but maybe now the more I think about it, Adam, the more I think he might just go back to Sterling and Saka, his first-choice wing pair. But I think everybody's on tenterhooks, really, to see what the decision's going to be over the next few days.
In terms of some other decisions to make, obviously the big focus is on, the attacking side of things. There has been some sort of rumblings about the potential, and I don't know how wide of the mark this is, of maybe giving Harry Kane a breather. That is just simply wide of the mark, is it not?
Adam, that's the stupidest idea I've ever heard. The idea that you would not play Harry Kane in a game, like the England captain, the man who's about to break the England record. He's got 3 assists in tournaments so far. He's England's leader on the pitch. He's a brilliant modern number 9 who can hold up the play, can drop into the number 10 space, create chances for anyone else. If you honestly, I genuinely can't get my head around how anybody can believe that Harry Kane should be dropped for the Senegal game. It's a ludicrous, preposterous idea. I cannot believe that it's circulating around social media today. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, no, that's good. I'm glad that you flagged that it is circulating on social media and it's not just something that I've cooked up myself.
No, it really is.
Not
it
me.
really is.
I'm not saying it. I don't think.
Yeah, because I wrote an article about Harry Kane today saying, why doesn't he get more respect? Why doesn't he get more credit given how good he is? And in the piece I wrote, some people are even saying that he should be dropped for Callum Wilson against Senegal. And I've had this, reply saying this, Jack, are they actually saying this? And I said, genuinely people are saying this. Honestly, it's a thing. I've seen tweets about it. I've seen it mentioned in newspaper articles by journalists who should maybe know better. This is a real idea that exists in the ether, but it is nonsense.
And what about changes at in the back line? Obviously, there was a couple of alterations, both in midfield with Henderson joining Bellingham and Rice in midfield, and then Kyle Walker coming into the side. Do you think that there's any thoughts in terms of, switching back to a back 3, and that being a way of dealing with the threat of Senegal in particular, or not? Do you think it's going to be tried and tested, and we just kick on with what we've had?
I do think we will see the back 3 at some point. I think this might be one game too soon for the back 3. I think Walker will play back 3 or back 4. I think he is ultimately the first choice right back ahead of Kieran Trippier, as good as Trippier is for England. So I do think Walker will play, and I think it will probably stay in the back 4 with Walker as a conventional right back. But let's wait and see.
I can see your eyes shifting from side to side. Are you about to be kicked out?
Yes.
Right. Well, that's the answer. And I will let you go then.
Yeah. I'm being. I've just
Right,
been.
well, that's fine.
That's been reiterated to me.
Right, well, go then. Off you go.
Okay.
So
I
Jack
will do.
Pitbrook is
Cheerio.
good to speak to you, Jack. Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, just to explain to you, if you're not familiar with it, often in football circles, both in club football and international football, they have sections, bits of training where the players are doing a little bit of stretching here and there. It's open for the first 10 or 15 minutes, and then officials come in and get all big and say, right, you got to go now, you got to go, because we've got all the secrets coming up. Never really happens, but we have to follow the rules. So Jack Pitbrook, great to have him on live. Today, big game for Belgium. They're taking on Croatia, and a little bit earlier on in the week, Luke Boscher, our reporter from The Athletic, went to one of their training sessions just to gauge the mood. We've got Ollie Kay coming up in a moment live, but let's just check in with what Luke had to say a little bit earlier on this week.
So I'm here at the Hilton Swara Beach Resort, about an hour outside of Doha. So for Qatar, relatively speaking, we're a little bit out in the sticks. This Belgium team have been based here for the entire World Cup. They're very much, kind of out of the centre of Doha, out of the way. No distractions, I guess. We've been speaking to Eden Hazard and Thibaut Courtois just now, two very senior players put forward for the Belgian press conference ahead of their crucial game against Croatia. That they've just come off the back of a 2-0 defeat by Morocco, a huge result, massive shock, and it leaves Belgium needing to beat Croatia realistically. And there have been talks of rifts, of problems within the camp, but Courtois and Hazard very keen to play those down to us just now. Courtois even talking about lies from outside the camp, causing problems, that don't need to be there. Hazard as well, talking about how they played with fear against Morocco and they need to not do that against Croatia. Croatia, on paper, a tougher opponent. So it remains to be seen how this Belgium team respond to that defeat and whether they can show a little bit more unity, a little bit more quality on the pitch against Croatia.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see how they deal with it, because Roberto Martinez has almost been suggesting that there's been conspiracy theories circulating about the Belgian side. I think the words fake news were even passing from his lips yesterday. Yeah, you always know that you're in a little bit of trouble if you're blurting that out all of the time. Obviously, it's a massive day in Group F. Croatia are top with 4 points. Morocco, who beat Belgium, they have 4 points. Belgium have 3 points. Canada, we know, are heading home, unfortunately for them. You can read about Canada's exploits, by the way, with Joshua Cloak on The Athletic. Always an entertaining read. Always very, very well dressed as well, is Mr. Cloak. But let's focus on Belgium. Ollie Kay can join us now. He's been following Belgium pretty closely during this tournament so far. And look, it's good to see you. It's good to see you, Ollie. It's going to be fascinating to see how they deal with Croatia, who, themselves, they were sort of prior to their game, and then they ran out 4-1 winners. So their amount of momentum, but Belgium have nothing of the sort. Have you any confidence that they can turn up a performance today? Because they certainly need it.
I think it would be very surprising if they were to produce a performance as bad as they did on whenever it was, Sunday, was it? Or Saturday, Sunday against Morocco. They were so poor, off the pace completely, and showed no real spirit, no quality, no cohesion. I think everybody's expecting reaction because you only need to listen to Roberto Martinez and Courtois, Hazard, Timothy Castagne, and in the pre-match press conferences, they've all been talking about the need to react, need to respond, need to produce a proper performance. But they've got it all to do. They've got, realistically, they've got to beat Croatia, and that's no easy task.
You wrote in the aftermath of the game against Morocco, referencing Kevin De Bruyne's claim prior to the tournament that they're just simply too old. This is a tournament too far. Do you think that there is an element of this now, that it's sort of push comes to shove? You've got older players, last chance saloon, very, very good players that maybe only a few of them, not all of them, are maybe just on the way down past their peak. Experience does play a big part in big games, so you never know with Belgium. Or am I being a little bit too hopeful on their behalf?
No, I think you'd expect big players to come to the party. At this point, pressure on. They need a reaction. I think you'd expect their big players to stand up and be counted. I mean, they didn't against Morocco. They didn't really in the victory over Canada either. And it's but no, you would expect them to produce. But I'm just fascinated to see what Martinez does with his lineup today. I think he's got to do something quite drastic rather than just sticking with the same players and sticking with the personality. Same personalities. I've been wondering whether he might even, whether Eden Hazard might be vulnerable or whether he might do something different with the defence. I don't know. I mean, I feel like he's got to be a bit bolder and a bit more aggressive and do something a bit different, because they need a different type of performance. They need far more quality than they got against Morocco.
Just a quick final question regarding Roberto Martinez. Do you feel that he is sensing that this is sort of end of days time for him? And, I heard him sort of utter the words fake news and basically talking about conspiracy theories and being unhappy with the way that the Belgian press in particular have been covering the Belgian side here at the tournament. That doesn't necessarily reflect a normally quite level-headed guy, which we've sort of grown to know over the years.
Yeah, he's normally very calm, very upbeat, sort of relentlessly positive about everything. And I thought his assessment of the performance the other day was as downbeat as anything I've heard from him. But he's also, I mean, the sort of fake news thing and sort of saying that those stories had just sort of rallied his team and brought them together, and our World Cup starts here. I think that was sort of, well, maybe wishful thinking in some ways, but I'm fascinated to see what he does today and how he approaches it, whether he's brought that group of players back together, because clearly unity was before that. But also I would expect this is his last tournament in the job. I would expect, 3 tournament cycles is a lot for somebody who's of that, still fairly young as manager, would probably want to get back into the club scene. And I suppose how he does with Belgium will determine whether he goes back in at a good level or has to lower his sights a bit.
Okay, Ollie, thank you very much indeed. Ollie speaking to us from the media centre. He's going to be heading to the Belgium game against Croatia. Not long to go, actually. They kick off 6 o'clock here, local time, 3 o'clock back in the UK. The other game in that group, of course, is Morocco against Canada. So those are the 2 6 o'clocks. And then this evening, we have Spain against Japan and Costa Rica against Germany. I'm heading to Al Bayt, which is where the Costa Rica-Germany game is taking place, as a plane flies right over my head. I hope you can still hear me. Let's get the take of Rafa Honigstein on the German situation. Rafa, hello. Good to see you. How are we feeling? How's the preparations been going since the last time we spoke ahead of this do or die encounter against Costa Rica?
I think generally speaking, the mood is pretty good. After that draw against Spain, Germany feel in a happier place, understanding that they have some sense of control of their own fate. A win with at least 2 goals would put them in a position where anything but a win for Japan, I should say, puts them through. So they feel that is not beyond them. They feel that they can do that without having to worry about too much. Of course, things would get very tricky if Japan were to lead. Then we need maybe 8 or 9 goals from Germany, which might prove beyond them, even against this Costa Rica side who proved very leaky in the first game. But generally speaking, I think a real sense of confidence restored, not so much because of the result, but maybe more so because the team rallied and came together after that meeting and put a lot of the things that the coach wanted that they had asked of themselves as well, in terms of determination, in terms of application, also the tactical setup. All these things were visible and gave everybody, I think, a lot more confidence in themselves that they can do what they've come to do, which is to play decent football.
After the first game, that shock defeat against Japan, obviously there was quite a lot of, well, quite open criticism from the players about what was going on, and we were sensing it was on a little bit of a knife edge. Just in general terms, and heading through this Spain fixture, obviously got the 1-1 draw. Do you sense that there has been sort of clear the air talks, and that there has been this sort of refreshing of unity amongst the squad? Is it almost like a blessing in disguise that Japan defeat actually happened, or not?
Well, we don't know. We don't know yet, but if that's going to be a blessing in disguise, I do think that team meeting that they had, which was very open, very honest, after the Japan game, will go down in history one way or the other. It'll either be the moment when things kind of came together and people managed to air their grievances and solve their problems in a constructive, very grown-up manner, or we will, in hindsight, think that this just showed just how big the rifts were and the amount of unease and the amount of disagreements, and that this couldn't be rectified in time. But we will only see the real effect on the pitch, and to a large extent, Germany are responsible, I should say, for their own fate. But of course, we might see a situation where they play really well, win really well, and still got knocked out. And then I don't know what that will do to the narrative. But you were right. The players have talked about this. There was a big meeting, and I think it was absolutely necessary after the Japan game to address this, because this was a team that looked as if they didn't quite fully trust themselves. There were issues in the back, there were issues in the front, and I think without that togetherness that was very much in evidence against Spain, Germany are not good enough to win. They are a decent side, great individuals, but not individualistic enough to play without that collective spirit that hopefully has been refound.
One quick last question on the manager, Hansi Flick. We spoke about Roberto Martinez being under huge pressure. What was he able to say to maybe give you some confidence that he's managed to dial in to these players ahead of the do or die game this evening? Is he speaking like a confident man, or is he looking a little bit sort of worried?
People who know him really well said he was a little bit nervous before the Spain game, but I think now the situation is different. He's, I think, much more confident. He has seen how the team reacts. He's seen also that his relationship with the players, with the team, which has always been good, is still very much intact. Yes, I think one or two maybe doubted his decisions before and during the Japan game, but conversely, everything he did against Spain seemed to work out. The setup was right. The substitutions made a huge positive impact. So all the sort of things that you need just to reassure, I think, maybe your players once in a while that you are the boss and you know what you're doing. And if you listen, then things will go well. So I don't think there's any problem. And that's ultimately also the reason why there won't be any changes. Even if Germany find themselves get knocked out, there's no appetite at the German FA or within the team to change the management. They will definitely give him the Euros. Of course, they'd like to go into the Euros on a positive feeling after a good World Cup rather than another group stage exit, but it won't decide his fate. He has still time to develop this team and grow into the role ahead of that Euros on home soil.
I think they'll make it, and I'm sure that you feel that too. I'm sure you're feeling confident inside. Rafa, thank you very much for speaking to us, and we will catch up. I'll probably see you at the game later on. Rafa Honigstein speaking from his villa, and then he will be heading to the game a little bit later on. Earlier on in the tournament, Rafa Honigstein actually spoke to the subject of our radar section today. I'm not going to spoil the surprise. I'm going to let the guys in London take it away.
Hello and welcome to the Athletics World Cup Radar. I'm Caoimhe O'Neill.
And I'm Carl Anker.
And we have got some player on our hands today to talk about.
Oh, yeah. He's very, very, very good. You may have already been blown away by his performance against Spain in that second group stage game for Germany. But our player on today's radar is Jamal Musiala from Bayern Munich.
They call him Magical Musiala in Germany, apparently. And it kind of makes sense.
They also call him Bambi because he's got skinny legs, but also there's some fire behind the eyes as well.
He's fierce, isn't he, on the pitch? You know, you mentioned Bambi as a nickname. He's quite a young-looking player, and he is a young player. He's only 19, but he's someone who just looks so much older and wiser. And some of those touches against Spain were remarkable. It looked like a veteran playing at his last World Cup, but still putting in a solid performance, rolling back the years. But this is, a player who is, at his first World Cup, and Germany lost the first game, got a very, very important point, and he was very crucial to that, not only just to the goal as well, and how he sort of manages to take a touch, but also get out the way all in one time. I think, he probably doesn't get enough credit for that.
He's a young player with old man ideas and old man experience. He understands when to take that extra touch and also when to stop. And I think that is really impressive for someone of his young age. His decision-making in the final third has already blown away a number of people, both at Bayern Munich and on the German national team level. I think it's really telling that, he's only just come in for this World Cup, and just how much of Germany's play is give it to Musiala already.
And watch what he can do.
Yeah.
Basically.
It's not a bad tactic, is it?
No, definitely not. He comes into this World Cup in fine form in the Bundesliga. He scored 8 goals, which is pretty much a bit of a hot streak for him. He hasn't, I don't think, ever scored that many goals to start a season with, and obviously he's got 4 assists as well. So he's well ahead of where he needs to be. Almost he's outperforming himself.
He truly is up there with players like Jude Bellingham, like Gavi, like Pedri, like Tchouaméni, and Camavinga in being the next big thing and possibly the future of central midfield. If you want to know more about this, we can show you via Producer Jones in the sky. Can you give me a pizza chart? There it is. Hello there, viewer. This is the Radar, the Athletics series, bringing you 100 players that we think are going to have a fantastic World Cup. Today's player we're highlighting is Jamal Musiala of Bayern Munich. And right in front of us, we have his pizza chart using Smart Scout data to look at things he does on a football field and giving him a score between 0 and 99 to indicate how good he is at a certain action or how often he does that. When you're looking at these pizza charts, remember, the bigger the wedge, the better they are at that thing, and the more well-rounded a pizza chart, the more well-rounded they are as a player. So this is Musiala. He plays in midfield. I'm saying midfield because sometimes he plays centrally, sometimes he plays deeper, sometimes he plays on the right, as he did against Spain. And he's genuinely just good at everything, isn't he?
Yeah, I think for Bayern Munich, he can play on the wing.
Yep.
And he's played in that sort of one half of a midfield pivot.
Yep.
And you can pretty much put him anywhere and he's going to perform. He does a few touches against Spain that would just mentioned, but I'm still blown away by them. What an incredible player. And I think the pizza chart shows how much, we've already mentioned his goals. He likes to get forward. He just pops up, doesn't he? You're like, oh, there he is again.
Yep.
Oh, he's in the box now. Oh, no, he's winning the ball back because he's tough and creative and such a talent. And to think he is one that got away for England as well.
He is one that got away for England. He also could have possibly declared for Nigeria if he wanted to. He's born in Stuttgart and opted to play for the German national team. One thing I'm going to talk about is like the one category where he's got a low score, which is that really tiny green slither, which is progressive passing, which is quite low for Bayern Munich because he doesn't necessarily need to pass from A to B, because in a Bayern Munich team that often dominates the ball, he is at point B all the time. What you should also focus on is those 2 big green shapes to the left. So that shows his link-up play and his ball retention. So he's really good at that safe passing, that sort of knee over the ball, short passing. He's really good at link-up play, so connecting himself with other players around the pitch. If you surround him with other smart players, he makes very smart things happen. But the other stuff you should look at is all those big shapes in blue. So that's XG from shot creation. So he's got a good shot. He shoots from very good positions. Receptions in the opposition box. So he knows how to pick up in the right area. And just as Kiva said, go, wait, how'd you turn up there? Because he's quick and he's really clever. And also shot volume, which is something that's quite new for Musiala. He doesn't normally take that many shots. But as you're seeing, as Bayern Munich and as Germany trusting more and more. He's shooting more, he's taking more responsibility, and he's having more influence in deciding games. Also quite pleasing is the decent red shapes for you, especially for ball recoveries and interceptions. He doesn't shirk the dirty work. He knows how to stand in the right place at the right time and win the ball back. He's really, really, really good. He's at Bayern Munich, which means he's probably not going to leave Bayern Munich until Bayern Munich decide he's not very good anymore. So,
I mean, you might need to up his contract because I think he's on the radar. You can read. I think he's earning $5 million a year, which is a lot of money, but doesn't feel a lot for the talent that Bayern Munich have on their hands, and you feel like he's going to play for them for such a long time.
Oh, yeah.
They need to get that locked in, don't they?
He could definitely play at Bayern Munich for a decade, especially if Jonesy, you got a chart for me. He keeps up his shot creation actions, which is displayed by this graph chart. I got some bar charts on it. So this indicates how often the player in Bayern Munich is responsible for shot creating actions. And as you can see, Musiala is number 3, quite behind, just a touch behind Thomas Müller and Leroy Sané. So
this is in a post Robert Lewandowski.
Yeah.
Bayern Munich, they need this kind of player, and they've got him.
Yeah. Gary Neville once described Bayern Munich as the best run club in Europe. And you can see right there. How are you going to replace Lewandowski? Oh, we've just got some 19-year-old kid in the back and he's going to play for us for the next decade. It's awful, isn't it?
I mean, and he's not just this young kid who's just sort of going under the radar. He's selling out like his shirt to like the top of any player and that kind of thing. He's a real star in Germany, and as I mentioned at the start of this, they call him Magical Musiala because he can do magical things. And I think we'll continue to see that. He's already we're bringing you players that are maybe going under the radar, players that are emerging talents, and he's just one we were desperate to speak about because it's just. You can't wait to watch Germany to watch him play, and I think that's the biggest compliment you can play.
Absolutely. A player with a bright future. Whether it continues at this World Cup, we'll see. But he's definitely going to be one of the standout players when the Euros go to Germany for 2024. So, Jamal Musiala, he's our player in the radar today. He's someone you should definitely have on your radar for basically.
Carl, Caoimhe, thank you very much indeed. Musiala, everyone will know about him. And the radar and the 100 players that feature in that huge document created by The Athletic is certainly one to log on to. If you're not already part of the Athletic family, you can head on to theathletic.com and pick up our latest offer there if you want to get stuck into the radar. It'll probably take you the rest of the tournament to get through all of them. But it is well worth your time. So we will see Germany up against Costa Rica, Musiala as part of that. The other game in the group, Caoimhe, who's back with us, is Spain against Japan. Let's just have a little look at that if we can. It's really difficult to work out which way this one's going to go because, I mean, just in general, the group is wide open, weighted towards the expectation that Germany are going to turn up against Costa Rica, but no one expected Costa Rica to beat Japan. So I literally don't have a clue what's going to happen this evening.
Neither do I. I think Group E's been maybe the best of the lot, the most baffling, because you get Spain opening it up with that 7-0 win over Costa Rica and everyone's, wow, that's amazing. And then you see, obviously, Germany go ahead against Japan, and then Japan come back to win it in that 8-minute spell and, score 2 incredible goals. And it's just all very like, okay, whoa, this is a group to keep our eye on. And then we have that amazing Spain and Germany game, which you've chatted about before, which I think has been my pick of the bunch so far. Really enjoyed that. We've sort of had the chaos of last night and how it can go down to yellow cards to, you can go out of a World Cup on yellow cards, which is just a madness. And that is something that could happen tonight because obviously Spain are on 4 points, Japan are on 3 points, Costa Rica picking up that win with the one shot on target they had against Japan. So they're on 3 points. Germany, bottom of the group, which, surprised us all. So, yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see sort of how Spain play this one. Do they just go all out and sort of, try and play with that lovely liquid football that we saw on display in both games, I'd say, even though, Germany were stronger there towards the end of that one. Whether they hold back a little bit, they just need a point to qualify. I think I'm right in saying Japan will need to go after this because they just don't want to be looking over the shoulder at that other group. They want to make sure they get that win. And I think, they're definitely a team capable of doing that. But this Spain team, you would imagine, will have enough to get past them.
Sorry, yeah, I think we have lost the connection. So I just wanted to finish by just pointing you in the direction of an article that is available for you on The Athletic at the moment, and it focuses on one of the wider issues of this Qatar World Cup. And we know, regarding all the stories of the migrant workers who helped build this World Cup, the stadia, the infrastructure, the roads, everything about this World Cup has been heavily reliant on the migrant workers. And Adam Crafton went to an industrial site, ultimately housing many of those migrant workers. And it was very emotional to see how Qatar ultimately are keeping those who helped build this World Cup at arm's length. So we'll leave it for this World Cup radar for today with this video that Adam Crafton sent to us, and you can see on our social platforms. We will see you tomorrow. This is Adam Crafton on the migrant workers being kept at arm's length.
When you think of Qatar, you probably think of this. It's the skyscrapers, it's the opulence, it's the big show that they're trying to give to the world. But this weekend, I went somewhere else to see a different side of Qatar. So we went around a half-hour drive outside of Doha to a place called Asian Town. And in Asian Town, it's like a shopping centre, entertainment complex, which a few years ago was described as the mall for migrants. And that's because the Qatari population is only around 380,000 Qatari nationals. There's also this huge migrant worker population, just under 3 million or so, who have contributed so much to the infrastructure of all the stadiums, all the transport infrastructure that we've seen that are behind this World Cup. The problem, however, is that a lot of these people, and they're almost entirely men, are unable to actually go to the matches to watch this FIFA World Cup. And that's because the tickets, for most of them, are simply too expensive. As a result, the Qatari authorities have created something called the Industrial Fan Zone. Now, there are a lot of different fan zones scattered around Qatar, and particularly in the centre of Doha. But to access these areas, you need something called a hire card, which is available if you have tickets for games during this FIFA World Cup. But because the majority of the migrant workers don't have these tickets, they can't access the majority of the fan zones. As a result, they've created this industrial fan zone, and it's made up pretty much solely of poorly paid migrant workers. In the industrial fan zone, at first glance, the conditions are great because you have a big screen, you have volleyball courts, you have five-a-side pitches. It's a cricket stadium. It's like a fun fair. But it's when you look beyond that glossy sheen that you maybe see a different picture. Some of these Kenyan workers actually showed me their employment contracts, and they earn 1,000 Qatari riyals per month, which is around 227 English pounds sterling. In addition, they get a food allowance of around 300 Qatari riyals. But many of the workers here say that this is still not really enough to live a prosperous life in Qatar. And that's also because many of them try to come here to Qatar and send money home to siblings or children back home either in Africa or South Asian countries. While the state of Qatar is receiving a huge amount of criticism for its treatment of migrant workers during this FIFA World Cup, it is also worth acknowledging, and this is what the migrant workers there at the cricket stadium were saying, that this is a problem not only in Qatar but across the Gulf region, where rights and freedoms for migrant workers are often not up to standards that the workers themselves would like. When you meet the migrant workers of Doha, not everybody says the same. They all have different experiences, but the future is one of uncertainty.